Greetings and salutations. This is the voice of Loquacious of Herd, bringing you his afterthoughts on My Little Pony, Friendship is Magic, Season 6, Episode 13, titled Stranger Than Fan Fiction, a reference to the sentiment that truth can be stranger than fiction. I heartily suggest that you find and watch the episode itself, sans commentary, before proceeding with either this Afterthoughts review or viewing my full reaction, which is hosted at the link in the description. Be warned, this Afterthoughts review will contain spoilers for the episode. We return from the mid-season hiatus to an episode that is extra-packed with all sorts of references, and which features Patton Oswalt, a comedian and actor who I know best from his role as Remy and Ratatouille, as a guest voice for a character. The episode begins with Daring Do, or rather with Twilight reading Rainbow Dash a Daring Do story, while Rainbow is busy packing to go to the upcoming Daring Do convention. The story being read involves the retrieval of the Amulet of Kulikan and far too many snakes. Why did it have to be snakes? Their conversation then hits a couple of recap-worthy highlights, helping remind us of key points, specifically that A.K. Yearling is secretly Daring Do, while also explaining why Twilight, who is a super fan just like Dashie, won't be going to the convention. Nice nod to the previous episodes, and a possible bit of foreshadowing by referencing a friendship summit in Griffinstone, which Twilight must attend per Celestia's request. At least Griffinstone is someplace Twilight had wanted to visit. Hopefully that will take some of the sting out of missing the Daring Do Con. Rainbow Dash shows up solo and finds the convention to be super exciting, her attempt to reassure Twilight that it wouldn't be that big a deal notwithstanding. And the convention. So much background stuff going on. Vendors and body pillows and cosplayers, oh my. Including a pony pushing the official Daring Do experience adventucation, where you get to live the Daring Do dream. Of course, Rainbow's been there and done that. Personally, I found the concept to be both amusing and on the edge of pushy marketing cringe. Enough so that I wondered if this might not be one of the little in-jokes about Hasbro that the show staff occasionally include. A bit of good-natured poking of the fun at the fact that one of the chief purposes for My Little Pony franchise is to sell toys. You know, whenever I recall this particular underlying purpose for the show, I am amazed and extra appreciative at the awesome work that everyone puts into Friendship is Magic. The stories, the characters, the world, the music, the art, the animation. They go above and beyond to make the show a delight. Kudos to them. And then, the awesomest thing ever. Daring Do meets another superfan, Quibble Pants, and our guest voiced actor for the episode. He's an Earth Pony with an empty comment bubble as his cutie mark. They hit it off right away, bonding over their shared love of the Daring Do adventure stories. In my mind's ear, I could already hear the fandom breaking out bottles of champagne to christen this new ship. But before arguments of whether Quibble Dash or Rainbow Pants would be the better name could really get underway, there's trouble in paradise. Quibble, true to his name, has some, let's call them strong opinions about the later books, as in he doesn't like them at all. Anything after the first trilogy is, in his opinion, unrealistic, hyper-action-packed rubbish, intended to appeal to the lowest common denominator of reader, stripped of the many excellent qualities that made the original trilogy so great. A.K. Yearling has, he feels, sold out, and Quibble intends to angrily confront her on this point, should he get the chance. The déjà vu was overpowering. It was like the sounds of billions of wildly diverse fandom arguments crying out, and then suddenly being silenced. All fandoms have been there. All fandoms have done that. Battle lines are drawn between those who enjoy various aspects of a franchise and those who don't. Arguments about which parts of the whole are super awesome and which parts are ruining the whole thing pop up anywhere. My Little Pony, Friendship is Magic, has not been immune to this phenomenon. I became a brony in spring of 2011. I was there through Derpygate, through the spontaneous introduction of Shining Armor and Cadence, Discord's redemption, and the fallout from the big Twilacorn reveal. More recently, we've had the destruction of the Golden Oaks Library, the arrival of the Crystal Tree Palace, the Cutie Mark Crusaders actually getting their cutie marks, and the addition of a reformed Starlight Glimmer to the main cast. Some of these changes to the show were huge, others were relatively minor, and all of them have spawned arguments. There are those with strong and vocal feelings on both the pro and con side, and Celestia help you if you ask a room full of some of the more passionate bronies what the best season of the show might be. Some are adamant that the show continues to improve, and that the best season is the current one, and some draw the line even as far back as season 1 or 2, equally adamant that the golden age of Pony was when Lauren Faust was heading the project herself, and anything after that isn't even worth acknowledging. Quibblepants struck me as instantly familiar, an overly analytical pony, deeply in love with certain aspects of his fandom's focus, and filled with detestation for other aspects. The biggest reason he struck me as familiar wasn't just because I've known and chatted with folks like him, but because I have a streak of the old quibbling in my own loquacious nature. Now, admittedly, I try to use my analytical powers for good. That is, I tend to take a more Rainbow Dash-ish approach to Pony, actively looking for and finding much that is well worth enjoying in almost everything they've done. And as a result, I'm filled with joy and excitement for almost every new thing that comes out, able to recognize the occasional flaw or shortcoming, but not letting that undermine my enjoyment of the show. If anything, the flaws or shortcomings, I find, offer the opportunity to develop explanatory headcanons that can spin off into some wonderful fan works or just amusing imaginings. But you'll note that qualifier I used. Almost. Almost everything. As some of my gentle viewers may know, I really dislike Equestria girls. All of it. Get me talking about it, and I'll go full-on quibble rant about my strong and well-thought-out dislike for that spin-off. Thing is, I get why others like it, and there is plenty there to like. There's considerable improvement from the first movie onward. I even wish EQG well because its commercial success helps indirectly fund and support the non-Equestria Girls show that I love. But I'm still a fellow who sticks his fingers in his ears and hums really loud when the subject comes up. Like Quibble, I don't dispute that Equestria Girls exist, I just don't acknowledge it as a thing for the show universe and my experience of it. The first movie is the only thing Pony that I have ever turned on, started to watch, gotten a third of the way through before standing up with a cry of "Disappointed!" and turning it off mid-showing. On subsequent viewings I have gotten through all of it, and the sequel, which is enough for me to know that this is an aspect of the Ponyverse that is simply not for me. I'm not a fan of it. And this show, it clearly knows its fans. The whole convention setup, and the nature of the conflict between Quibble and Rainbow Dash should erase any doubts that anyone might have had about that point. Also, whoever animated the food court vendor pony's expressions during Rainbow's and Quibble's brief argument knows they're soul-crushed retail workers. Such delight at the drama being witnessed, paired with an otherwise grim, must not murder any pony today attitude the rest of the time. The two go their separate ways. But Rainbow can't just let this go. Her loyalty goes beyond just a fan's loyalty to their fandom, but because of her experience aiding Daring Do with the Ring of Destiny, her emotional investment in this argument also reflects her loyalty to one of her friends. While I've never been someone to view the main six as being constrained or solely defined by their associated element of harmony, I do enjoy and appreciate it when either living up to their element or struggling to do so is one of the points in a particular Ponies episode. Again, kudos to the writers for this little understated touch. And kudos to the art and animation team. When Rainbow Dash is talking to the hotel concierge trying to track down A.K. Yearling, I immediately flash back to Wes Anderson's 2014 comedy, The Grand Budapest Hotel. Between the layout, the hotel employee uniform's color scheme, the pony Ralph Fiennes as Monsieur Gustave H., the aforementioned concierge, and the hint of Tony Revolori's bellboy character Zero Mustafa in the background, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had seen this before. Surely, I thought, this is all coincidence. And then I read that there was a Wes Anderson Easter egg in the episode. I applaud you, show. Even for what are fundamentally trivial background scenes and set pieces, you go the extra mile to make them special. Thank you. Rainbow Dash wants A.K. Yearling to talk some sense into Quibble, specifically about the realism of the later stories. A.K. Yearling, better known as Daring Do, has other problems. That story Twilight was reading to Rainbow Dash, about the recovery of the Amulet of Kulikan? Yeah, a real thing. Daring Do has it on her because it is a key to a treasure in a jungle temple that she hasn't been able to locate yet. And her nemesis, Cabaleron, is hunting for the key himself, intending to seize the treasure it unlocks and sell it to the highest bidder. Daring asks Dashy to keep a sharp eye out. The convention offers a surprisingly safe refuge for Daring Do. She can go about in her civilian disguise as author A.K. Yearling. She can count on there being tons of security around to keep overly enthusiastic fans from bothering her, and if real trouble emerges, she can ditch the author's outfit and blend in with all the other Daring Do cosplayers. I find this hiding in plain sight plan to be delicious. Unfortunately, it also cuts both ways. Admittedly, the real Dr. Cabaleron is rather distressed by all this fanfare surrounding his arch-nemesis, nor is he enthused by his own booth and the ponies cosplaying as him. Although I loved Derpy's own Dr. Cabaleron cosplay. You rock, Derpy. Never change. Rainbow, in her hunting about for the real Cabaleron among all the fakes, once again bumps into Quibble, and he and Rainbow clash, but then she spots Cabaleron. Quibble spots several others. When Rainbow reveals that the one she's now following is the real one, and all of this is part of an adventure, he, as just about any pony would, decides she's a little too crazy. But before he can leave to return to the convention, Quibble and Rainbow are nabbed by Cabaleron's thugs and dragged off to the jungle. Now, there's a lot of things I like about this episode, but one of the biggest sources of enjoyment for me is watching Cabaleron interact with Quibble. Quibble is convinced that this whole affair is just one of those official Daring Do experience adventucation packages that Rainbow Dash has purchased. The abduction, the jungle, the villain's plan, all of it plays out like one of the new, unrealistically adventure-packed Daring Do stories he detests. And Quibble treats Cabaleron like a bad actor playing the part of the villain. From the get-go, Quibble is so very, very done with it all. Cabaleron, in turn, is just gobsmacked by the presence of a pony who doesn't believe he's actually serious about, well, any of this. Cabaleron's confusion and his annoyance build through the latter portion of this episode into the most beautiful facial expression of, is this guy for real? That Cabaleron, in his desperation, fires off at Rainbow Dash, turning to her for support and agreement. Cabaleron is hunting for the temple. Rainbow Dash is struggling to escape and assist Daring Do. Quibble just wants to get away from all these crazy, low-budget actors and this equally crazy fan pony and get back to the convention. And in his sarcastic, overly analytical, and deeply critical fashion, Quibble arranges for escapes, only to have the generic, precarious rope bridge incident convince him that this isn't the official experience after all. It's a low-budget knockoff, and someone needs to report their unsafe practices to the authorities. Admittedly, Rainbow Dash's rescue of the falling Earth Pony was an acrobatic action sequence that does serve to convince the adventure critic that sometimes unrealistic seeming and incredibly dangerous action elements can happen in real life. It's not until a genuine pony-eating monster puts in its oh-so-cliché appearance in the middle of his ranting about Aoizodal wannabes that Quibble finally realizes that this is all real. Now, to step back a bit, for a look at the temple and the various Mesoamerican items which serves as the story's window dressing. As usual, the show has done its research, and I love it. First, the Amulet of Culiacan is a reference to the city of Culiacan in northwestern Mexico. In pre-colonial times, that name would likely have been translated as either the place of those who adore the crooked god Coltzin, with its connection to an unusual and little understood image of a solstice wheel, or as the Palace of Many Snakes. Well, judging by the story Twilight was reading, there were certainly many snakes where the amulet was recovered. If they're also referencing crooked celestial gods, I have to wonder if these ancient Mesoamerican pony cultures revered Celestia and Luna. Then we find the action venturing to the lost temple of Chico-Maztoc. Chico-Maztoc is a mythical place, supposedly the origin point for the Aztecs and several other ancient Mesoamerican peoples. Whether it exists in reality or only in legend, it was a spiritual place for Aztec shamanism. Its name in classical Nahuatl is literally place of those with ancestors. Lastly, the beastie that Quibble accidentally releases, the one which finally turns Quibble into a believer, that's Quipactli. In Aztec mythology, it was a primeval sea monster, part crocodile, part fish, and part frog. In theory, a couple of Aztec gods killed it and used its body to make the world. This isn't an unfamiliar story. Many ancient peoples told similar tales. Tiamat and Ymir are two similar mythic figures. Now, with the historical mythology that underlies these equestrian items, locations, and beasties out of the way, I also want to talk about the delightful wall art we find through the temple of Chico-Mozdok. My theory that the ancient Mesoamerican pony cultures knew of and revered Celestia and Luna would seem to be borne out by these decorations. As Cabaleron, Quibble, Dash, and the Hinch ponies are walking through the temple, we see some very interesting things behind them. First, a sun disk divided yin-yang-like with two alicorns circling it in a counterclockwise fashion. The yin-yang symbol, incorporating the sun and the moon, being circled by two alicorns in a counterclockwise fashion, is one of the first symbols the show ever gave us. All the way back in Season 1, Episode 1, as Twilight is reading and we hear Celestia narrating the story of the Royal Pony Sisters and Luna's eventual transformation into Nightmare Moon. It's from the opening crawl for the show's pilot. This wall panel is also associated with an 8-pointed star and a unicorn. At a guess, it could be a reference to Celestia and Luna's early work with Star Swirl the Bearded, which led to their assuming mastery over sun and moon, the cycle of day and night. The next wall panel shows two alicorns confronting some sort of snake monster. Again, at a guess, this could be a representation of Celestia and Luna's battle with Discord, which would make it another piece of ancient pony history known to the Aztec-esque pony culture of the jungle and preserved in their art. Then an earth pony in armor, with some sort of blue bubbles overhead, and a few hints of the wall panels further along, an alicorn doing something, a pair of what I suspect are griffins facing each other. Color me interested. But back to the action. Now fleeing the Quipactli, Quibble and the still wing-tied Dash are rescued by Daring Do. Cue an awesome smug face from Dash as Quibble realizes both that Daring Do is real and that Dash is friends with her. Now, though, there is a treasure to be retrieved and a puzzle to solve. 7 doors, only one of them leading to the treasure. The rest, certain death. Probably. Quibble describes it as a the pony or the tiger sort of puzzle, which is accurate enough, although in this case there is only 1 lady to 6 tigers, making one's odds poor if one cannot decipher the clues. Daring is off her puzzle game a bit, and even though he's now a believer, Quibble is still his sarcastic know-it-all self. He points out that 6 of the doors in the chamber have a matching pair. One set shows earth ponies, sporting some impressive shields, battling serpents. Next up, griffins battling pegasi, which gave me a brief flashback to Griffin the Brush-Off. And finally, unicorns battling bears, which gave me another brief flashback to Ghostbusters and the assault of the Ursa Minor. Only one door is unique, one showing an alicorn and stars. Perhaps Luna? But I could be wrong about that. Inside lies the 7-sided chest of Chico-Mozdok. Daring grabs it, and they make a run for the exit, only to discover that the Quibble-induced flooding has already submerged it. Harkening back to his rescue from the falling rope bridge, Quibble gets Dash and Do to drag him along in a bit of impromptu water skiing, as they strive to avoid the hungry Quipactli. And we get a lovely nod to Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Only this time it's Quibble's "go around him, not over," for the beastie, being misheard as "go over," rather than Jones's speedboat-related directions to Elsa of "are you crazy? Don't go between them," with them being a too close pair of large cargo ships, answered by her reply of "go between them, are you crazy?" As with the Last Crusade, this unintended and unorthodox choice does result in a successful escape. Then, a simple plan to distract and evade Cabaleron, one which results in the rogue archaeologist on the run from the aforementioned hungry Quipactli as a bonus. Danger past, Daring thanks her assistance and sets off to give the chest to a museum. As Quibble and Dash start walking home, they talk. Quibble has come to an important realization. Specifically, just because fans don't like the same things about the fandom, just because they disagree on what parts are good or bad, doesn't mean they can't be friends. You can be friends with someone, even if they don't like exactly the same things you like. In short, it's okay to like things, and it's okay to not like things. Their differences needn't drive them apart. Instead, they can celebrate what they both enjoy, what unites them in their fandom community. And this, I feel, is a lovely lesson for the show to give us. Kudos to them. Oh, and Quibble's ramble through the closing credits was a perfect touch, a glorious end to a most enjoyable episode. I look forward to what other gems Season 6 will bring us. If you wish to see my full reaction to My Little Pony, Friendship is Magic, Season 6, Episode 13, titled Stranger Than Fanfiction, the link, as I mentioned earlier, is in the description. Feel free to leave any comments or likes for that reaction here on this Afterthoughts review. And until next time, as always, kindly remember, y'all are awesome. Stay awesome.